Hello, welcome to Business 343, Market and Consumer Behavior. And we're going to start off right at the beginning with Chapter 1. Probably the best place to start, right? So let's get an introduction to consumer behavior and get going with our semester. Chapter 1. So the learning objectives that we are going to cover in this chapter is you're going to learn that consumer behavior, there's actually a process to it. Just like I'm always saying with all types of marketing strategies, there's a process. And we need to understand the wants and needs of different consumer segments. Our choices as consumers relate in powerful ways to the rest of our lives. It affects us. Our choices affects us in all kinds of ways. Our motivations to consume are very complex and varied. And technology and culture creates a new, always-on customer. And we're going to take a real brief look at different types of specialists that study consumer behavior. You might be a little surprised to find out exactly how important consumer behavior is in all different types of professions, and a couple different perspectives regarding how and what we should understand about consumer behavior. So to get started out with, we're going to take a look at the fact that consumer behavior is a process. So in the early stages of development, researchers referred to the field as buyer behavior. Marketers now recognize that consumer behavior is this ongoing process, not merely what happens at one point in the transaction cycle. We call the transaction of value between two or more an exchange. You remember that, right? It's an integral part of marketing, but consumer behavior recognizes that the entire consumption process is relevant for marketers. Consumption communities are where members share opinions and recommendations about anything from Barbie dolls to baseball fantasy league team lineups to even iPhone apps. The use of market segmentation strategies means an organization targets its products, services, or an idea just to specific groups of consumers rather than to everybody. Sound familiar? Even if it means that other consumers who don't belong to this target market aren't attracted to it. So that's why they make chocolate and vanilla ice cream and even candied bacon flavored ice cream. So what is consumer behavior? It's a study. It's a type of research, really, is what it is, of the processes that involved when individuals or groups of individuals select, purchase, use, and dispose of products, services, ideas, or experiences to satisfy wants and needs. So, so there's four kind of parts there in that they select, purchase, use, and dispose of. It's an entire um, lineup of things that a consumer will go through. And we want to study each of those and how they do that to satisfy needs and desires. We call the person who identifies a need or a desire, makes the purchase, and then disposes of the product as a consumer. The purchaser or user might be the same person or not. You know, mom might buy a toy. She's the one who's making the purchase, but her child that she bought it for is the one that actually uses it. You can see in the slide that there are three key stages. We've got pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase. And marketers need an understanding of all three stages. This is kind of similar to the purchase decision journey that some of you may have covered with me in other classes from McKinsey. This is kind of more, just a little more focused and not, necessarily in the advertising. We're just looking at the consumer part of it really. But so pre-purchase issues, for example, At the consumer's perspective, how does that consumer decide that they need a product? What do they go through? And what are the best sources of information to learn more about alternative choices? And then from the marketer's perspective, though, they want to know how consumers' attitude toward a product formed or changed. What cues did consumers use to infer which products are superior to others? These are important issues for the marketer to understand so we can better develop products that will meet wants and needs, set better prices, set up better distribution channels, and promote our products, communicate to the customer. So think about it for a moment. What made you decide you needed a particular product? Excuse me, what was the trigger? Did you get in the shower this morning and when you went to wash your hair, the shampoo was gone? Was that your trigger for the need for some shampoo? Or did you have plenty of shampoo and when you got out and you fixed your hair, you realized that you didn't like the feel or smell or texture of your hair because of the shampoo? Was that your trigger? What was it that triggers you to decide that you need it? And when you're using the product, what determines if the experience is pleasant? So when you're using that shampoo, do you enjoy the aroma of it? Do you enjoy the feel of it? What is it that makes it a pleasant experience for you? Marketers must understand that various consumer segments they're targeting in order to meet segments' needs. Many dimensions are relevant for understanding consumer needs and wants. For one thing, we look at usage, whether they're heavy or light, and can help to focus marketers' energies. In addition, there are many demographic variables that can help us in understanding groups of individuals. So the consumers, as I said, were different. We've got, as I mentioned, heavy and light users. And what that is, a heavy user is someone that uses the product a lot and purchases it often. And then we have what we call the 80-20 rule, in where 20% of your consumers, users, or whatever actually account for 80% of the sales. These two groups of individuals are very important to marketers because 80% of the sales, that's a lot of money, right? We're getting to where we're talking about loyalty here a little bit, and so these are people that we really want to understand and keep them happy and keep them coming back. Demographics are statistics that measure observable aspects of the population. Right? Everybody has an age. Everybody has a gender. Everybody has a race and ethnicity. Everybody has a social class or income. Some of the more common demographic measures, as mentioned here, age, gender, family structure, social class, race, ethnicity, and geography, even lifestyles can be useful for marketers, and that consumers may share demographic characteristics but have very different lifestyles. Marketers try to understand their consumers and develop these lifelong relationships. Marketers who, if you follow these approaches, are said to follow the philosophy of relationship marketing. You may have heard that in the past. And they may also utilize database marketing in order to track consumers' buying behaviors. People who belong to the same social class, for example, are approximately equal in terms of their incomes and social standing in their community. This is a good example of a bank that boastfully targeted rednecks. It definitely suits the idea of what would catch the attention of a redneck, I guess. So. Database marketing now, that tracks specific consumers' buying habits very closely and crafts products and messages tailored precisely to people's wants and needs based on this information. The collection and analysis of extremely large databases is what we call big data. In a single day, get this, in a single day, consumers create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. Quintillion. I have no idea how many that is, but it's a lot, right? Big data can influence many areas of consumer life. So for instance, monitoring of Google searches for fever and flu can help epidemiologists to identify specific areas of the U.S. that have been hit by the flu outbreaks, even before patients begin visiting doctors and hospitals. Marketing influences popular culture, and popular culture actually influences marketing. This is where our choices as consumers relate in powerful ways to the rest of our lives. Many people don't realize the extent to which marketers influence popular culture. Whether we are talking about music, movies, sports, or entertainment, these forms of popular culture both influence and are influenced by marketing. So if a new product has a message that is powerful enough to come out with maybe a new fashion, a new type of food, a new style in music or something like that, if it's powerful enough and it catches on, it can actually influence culture. It's amazing. And again, it's vice versa as well. Some consumer brand relationships. One of the top types of relationships we call role theory, which takes the view that much of consumer behavior resembles the acts in a play. We find that consumers may develop relationships with brands over time. And there's a list here on this slide of some of the types of relationships we may see between consumers and their brands. We have what we call the self-concept attachment, which means that products help to establish the user's identity. This is one of our early points in the chapter. We have nostalgic attachment, which means that the product serves as a link to the consumer's past. We have interdependence. My pen isn't wanting to work very good. There we go. Which is that the product is part of the user's daily routine. And then love means that the product elicits actual emotional bonds of warmth, passion, or other strong emotions. So let's reflect on this for just a minute. Think about your car, right? Those of you who have one. Or if you don't have one, think about maybe your mom or your dad, a friend that owns a vehicle or whatever. What kind of relationship do they have with their car? Do they just use it to drive to work or whatever, and that's the end of it? Or do they have a deeper relationship with their car? You know, most of you know that I'm a big Jeep Wrangler fan, and I've had one for several years. The one I have right now, his name is Bruce. uh, yeah, some of us actually name our vehicles, and I like to chat with Bruce sometimes on my way to and from work. Um, and How do the relationships affect the behavior? Like for my Jeep, my Jeep makes me feel young and adventurous. So it kind of almost influences me to do some of the things I love to do, like going kayaking or riding my mountain bike up in a mountain trail, or some things like that. It actually does, I think, influence me to just get out and enjoy nature a little bit more just because of the brand. Um, People often buy products not for what they do, but for what they actually mean. Products play an extended role in our lives. Motivation refers to the processes that lead people to behave as they do. It occurs when a need is aroused that the consumer wishes to satisfy. So we have our motivation can be either a need or a want, and it refers to the processes that lead people to behave as we do. It occurs when a need is aroused that the consumer wishes to satisfy. Maybe you're hungry, maybe you're thirsty, maybe you're cold, maybe you need to get to work, you need reliable transportation, whatever. Maybe you need a textbook for class. Um, the need creates a state of tension that drives the consumer to attempt to reduce or eliminate it. So this need may be utilitarian, a desire to achieve some functional or practical benefit, like uh, getting a vehicle to transport to work, or getting a textbook to make sure you pass a test, or when a person loads up on green vegetables for nutritional reasons. Or it could be what we call hedonic, which is an experiential need involving emotional responses or fantasies. And that would probably be more like me having, I need to have my Jeep Wrangler because there's an emotional and an experiential um, thing going on there with me and that product. Um, think about it here. What need, describe a need and a want you have and explain the motivation for the want. What takes you beyond just the need? You're hungry, you need food, but you want a grilled T-bone steak with a stuffed baked potato. You know, what is that motivation that takes you beyond that basic need to go even further and get something better? So access to the internet is incredibly influential for consumer behavior. It changes who you may interact with, the information you can find, the choices you see as available, and the time and energy you spend dealing with various decisions. The internet has made it possible for businesses to use an additional channel of distribution. For we have e-commerce now for the B2C industry, but it's also made possible some other channels, such as what we call C2C, which is consumer to consumer e-commerce. You, most of you have probably seen the online yard sales and different sites, online stores through Facebook or different things where you can actually purchase products from other customers. You're likely at the forefront of the impact of the web on consumer behavior because you are what we call a digital native, which grew up in a wired world. The web hasn't changed consumer behavior by shifting our options in terms of channels of distribution. It's also made possible a whole new form of media known as social media. The term digital native originated in 2001 in an article to explain a new type of student who was starting to turn up on college campuses. These consumers grew up wired in a highly networked, always-on world, where digital technology had always existed. We have two different types of interactions. We have what we call synchronous and asynchronous. And it's just kind of like a classroom taking a course. A synchronous interaction is something that occurs in real time. So like when you take class in the classroom, it happens in real time. That's called synchronous. An online class like you're taking right now is what we call asynchronous interaction. And that's something that you can do at any time. Um, it can be considered like a text where you can get a text today but not answer it until the next day. So it's not really real time, but it's still an interaction. So how has your life changed because of social media? Think about it. What's your virtual life look like? I know it's kind of hard for you probably to remember back to the day when you were not on social media and didn't have all the virtual opportunities that you have now. But, how has it changed you? Or has it changed you? Has it made you more positive, more negative? Are you able to communicate better? Um, looking back at maybe your parents or grandparents where when they were your age, we didn't have social media and a virtual life. Talk to them and ask them what life was like when they were your age, and see how their daily life has changed. You'll probably see a more dramatic um, change in their lives because of social media and the internet. And the book does cover some things with some areas of study with specialists that focus on consumer behavior. And we've got different disciplines such as experimental psychology, clinical psychology. Those of you who are econ majors, the focus for research in consumer behavior might be the product role in allocation of individual or family resources. In this example, using magazine usage as a research topic, the factors influencing the amount of money a household spends on the magazine. Take my picture away there for a second. Social psychology looks at consumer behavior. Sociology, for this particular type of research on magazine usage, the pattern by which magazine preferences spread through a social group, like a sorority or a fraternity. Some other disciplines, macroeconomics, might focus on the product role in a consumer's relationship with the marketplace as a whole. Semiotics, literary criticism, demography, um, product role in the measurable characteristics of a population. History, cultural anthropology, I thought was pretty cool. Someone in that type of discipline might, if they were doing a research project on magazine usage, they might focus on ways in which fashion and models in the magazine affect readers' definition of masculine versus feminine behavior. It's amazing how just a magazine can define or change the definition of something as basic as gender roles. And this figure is pretty cool because we have what we call the micro consumer behavior, which is focused on the individual, and we have the macro consumer behavior, which is social focused. And actually, that's how our book is set up. We're going to start out looking at this individual focus, and then we're going to move on gradually into looking at consumer behavior in the macro perspective in society. And this is how these different disciplines measure or use consumer behavior. The closer to the top are focusing more on individual, where like the cultural anthropology is looking more at social focus. And finally, the two different perspectives in how and what we should understand consumer behavior. We call a set of beliefs that guide or our understanding of the world, what we call that is a paradigm. And some believe consumer behavior is in the midst of this big paradigm shift, which occurs when a competing paradigm challenges the dominant set of assumptions. The basic set of assumptions underlying the dominant paradigm in consumer behavior right now is what we call positivism or modernism. And this emphasizes that human reason is supreme and there is a single objective truth that science can discover. It's black and white, it is what it is. But the newer paradigm of what we call interpretivism or postmodernism questions these assumptions of before, and this perspective argues that societal beliefs deny the complex social and cultural world in which we really live. And this comes from your book, this table, and it shows some of the differences between positivist approach and interpretivist approach. I'll close the picture there again. Consumer culture theory, what we call CCT, refers generally to the research that regards consumption from social and cultural point of view rather than more narrowly as an economic exchange. That's kind of the new term they're using for the interpretivist approach. All right, and there's our summary. We've looked at the process, wants and needs, choices that we make, how they relate to the rest of our lives, motivations, technology and culture, specialists, and perspectives. So the chapter isn't all that bad for you to review. I do want you to read the chapters, okay? You, in an online class, there's a lot of self-teaching, and you don't have to come to 2.5 hours of lecture in a classroom. And I'm as happy about that as probably you are, because that would be boring for all of us. So, make sure you watch these videos. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction on the chapter. This one's right now 26 minutes. I'll try not to make it any longer than that. But do read the chapter. Do watch the video that I put up on Mondays, all right? Get started with that. And then throughout the week, you've got discussion posts that focus on something from the chapter. Your initial post is due on Thursday, by Thursday. You can post earlier, but by Thursday. And then you have to reply to 3 classmates by Sunday, all right? Get engaged, get active on those discussion boards. That's how we communicate back and forth with each other in this virtual classroom. Each week there's a test as well, and the week 1 test is available for you, but I really, really recommend that you go through this presentation. If you need to more than once, read the chapter before you take that test, because once you start it, you have to complete it, and there's no do-over, and it has to be done by Sunday. They cannot be submitted late. It will go away. It disappears. The carriage turns back into a pumpkin, and the horses go to mice at midnight on Sunday, and so the test won't be available. So make sure you get all those things done, and you're going to be doing this every single week throughout the entire semester. Welcome to online courses if you haven't done them before. Also this week, for the first part 1 of your final project, is selecting the book you want. There's a sign-up sheet virtually in the classroom. If you have problems with it, let me know. But there's 7 different books you can choose from. Get the one that you sign up for, the one you want. Only 4 students can do each book. So if you can't get into that group, that means it's met the max, and you'll have to pick a different one. But as soon as you get accepted into one of those groups, get that book bought and start reading on it. All right. If you click on the final project link in Blackboard, you'll see the different parts, different sections or different steps to our final project. And that's the first one, due Sunday, and it's worth 5 points for your final project grade. All right. So sorry this is taking so long. I will honestly do my best to keep them shorter. Don't know if that's going to happen. I want to make sure you at least get a brief understanding of what's going on in each chapter. Again, if you need anything, my office hours are posted in Blackboard. If you email me, text me, call me, whatever, I'm here to help you out. I want to see everybody succeed and become awesome business professionals. All right. So have a great week. I hope everyone gets settled in, and best of luck with consumer behavior. Bye now.